Hi there. So we're going to make some kefir, another fermented product here for you. So full of good living enzymes, bacteria, and all kinds of other good stuff for your intestinal flora and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to show you these little buggers here. They're in here jumping around still. They get a little slower and slower as they eat up the sugars that are in there, but they're still bebopping a little. And so this is the water kefir, and very simple to make. So this is already processed. It's been sitting for about 24 hours or so. And depending on the temperatures, again, you might want to let it sit 1 to 2 days. No more than 3, because they'll have eaten all the sugars by then, and then they'll start weakening. And in fact, your kefir won't even taste as good. It'll start tasting a little almost vinegar-like. So all you're going to do is strain these little guys out. Now you can use either plastic or stainless steel as your containers and your utensils. So these ones are pretty small. They can actually get pretty large, almost like about the size of a pea or so. So we're just gonna, this is what we're gonna be drinking. So I'm gonna pour it in a container here. Now we use that for the base of our green drinks. It's wonderful plain. I like to add some lemon, lime, ginger. Makes it a really good, delicious drink. In fact, if you put a very tight-fitting lid on that, you want to keep a little airspace, but if you keep a real tight-fitting lid on that and leave it out on the counter for 24 hours or so, you'll get some carbonation in there. It'll taste like a carbonated soda. So now these little guys, since I started them, have increased in size, and I only need about a half a cup to start my new batch. So actually first I'm going to make a half gallon. So I used about a half a cup of sucanat. So that's your unrefined cane sugar. Just put it right in there. And they also require an alkaline environment, so alkaline water. If you're lucky enough to have really good fresh, mineral water where you live, that's great. What I'm using here is sterilized crushed eggshell. If you don't use eggs and you don't have access to good fresh organic eggshells to sterilize, you can also use powdered coral calcium, or there's some good liquid trace mineral supplements you can purchase out there, but they do need alkaline water. So I'm going to use, for a half gallon, this is just a quarter of a teaspoon of ground sterilized eggshell. So put that right in there. A little warm water to melt that sucanat down a little bit. Give it a whirl. And I'm going to fill the rest of this up with fresh water. Okay, so we have fresh spring water here. You want to use, purified water, spring water. Spring water is the best because it does still have some minerals in it. But of course, never chlorinated water or tap water with any chemicals in it. And you always want to leave that airspace because we're going to put a lid on it. And of course, since it's fermenting, it can explode. So you want to give it some air to breathe. Okay, so I need a half a cup of the kefir grains back in this jar. But first, you want to make sure that your water isn't too warm for these little guys. So if you need to, let it sit for a few minutes to get to room temperature. In fact, I feel it's probably a little warm. So we're going to, meanwhile, show you milk kefir, and then we'll come back to that. Okay, so this is my processed milk kefir. It's actually been processing for about 48 hours. There again, you can just do it, temperature depending. Some people don't like it as sour. 24 hours might be just fine. Pretty much you want to wait till it starts separating. Whether if it's not separated within 24 hours, you're probably going to want to wait a little longer. So see, we have good separation here. So the longer you let it sit, it is going to increase in sourness, which I like. And another benefit to that is the B vitamins and so forth are also increasing with time. Again, same as the water kefir, no longer than 3 days, or your little live guys won't have anything to eat, and they'll start weakening, and the taste won't be as well either. This guy here, I actually processed, so I took the grains out and left it on the counter for a couple days. Now I've been moving it around, so it's not settled as much as it was, but when you do that, it'll actually carbonate also, which doesn't sound very good, but it's awesome. I like it that way. And when it's separated like this, you can, all the solids raise to the top, so you could actually scoop this off the top and use it for cheese or sour cream or anything like that. If you want a firmer cheese, go ahead and put it in a cheesecloth bag or a nut bag and let that drip until it's no longer dripping. It might take about 24 hours. But you can also give it a little squeeze too and remove some more out of there. And that'll give you a little firmer cheese. Mix fresh herbs with it. You can put it on crackers or your raw pizzas, whatever you like. So, there's that guy. Okay, so same thing with the water kefir, but with this one, we're actually going to stir it up first because we want to separate the grains from the liquid. Stir it really well. And just pour it in your strainer. So I'm just going to use this jar to pour it back into. Okay, so you can stir it around a little. Get it to go through. This is pretty thick, actually. It'll vary with the different temperatures in your home. Sometimes it'll be thinner, sometimes it'll be thicker. Usually the longer it sits, it will get a little thicker. And I actually have quite a few grains here. So these guys don't increase as fast as the water kefir grains. They only increase about 5% per batch, where the water kefir grains, they can increase 100%, sometimes even more if they're really happy. So we have some extra grains here. These grains are totally edible. It's full of all kinds of good bacteria and so forth. So if you wanted to, you could throw them in a smoothie. You could give some to a friend. You could even just pop them in your mouth and chew them up. But you probably only need, for a quart of kefir, maybe a couple of tablespoons in your jar. So that's probably plenty. So I'm going to set this over here. So this is our made kefir. You can either leave it out on the counter, or if you don't care to, stick it in the fridge to stop fermentation, because even this, even though it doesn't have the grains in it, it will keep fermenting. And all you're going to do now is add some more fresh milk. stir. And leave it on your counter for 24 to 48 hours. And you'll have another batch. Okay, so our water is about room temperature now. So we're going to take our kefir grains. Now, I only want a half a cup of kefir grains for a half a gallon of kefir. So basically it's a half a cup of each, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of kefir grains. So they should have increased. And like I said, depending on how happy they are, if they like the temperatures perfect and everything, sometimes you'll get more than 100% increase out of your grains. So I'm just going to measure out a half a cup to put back in there. And there you go. So you can see the difference here. You know, this is how dark the sugar is when we start. And after the kefir grains have eaten a lot of the sugars, it'll lighten up like this, which is pretty much what I go by. If I look on the counter and notice, recognize that the color looks like it's about ready, I'll give it a little taste, because sometimes it can process really quickly and other times it will take longer, usually depending on the temperature. So if it's processing really quickly, and that goes for your milk kefir grains also, then you can take some grains out. Like if your house is really warm, you might only want a quarter a cup of grains in there or so. Or if you want to slow down the fermentation, you've got plenty of kefir in the fridge, and you want to keep your little guys happy, but you don't want that much kefir, go ahead and put less grains in there and let it sit for a couple days. Also, if you get backed up on kefir and you don't want to make any more, what I'm going to do right now, if I wanted to stop for a few days, is go ahead and just put this whole thing right here into the refrigerator. So you want to give them fresh sugar water and your mineral supplement still, but you can keep it in the refrigerator for a week or so and then take it out. And they'll be a little slower at first until they warm up, so it might take them a couple days to recoup, but they'll start doing their thing again. Same goes with the milk kefir grains. If you want to slow down, just give them some fresh milk or sugar water, and milk for the kefir, milk kefir, and sugar water for the water kefir, and stick them in the fridge. And you can do that for about a week or two. And that's it.